thought Earth would forgive. Instead, they saw the sky turn to fire. The Galactic Accord was meant to be eternal. Signed across 7 systems, ratified on 13 worlds, and engraved into the soil of Earth itself, it was more than a treaty. It was a vow, an unbreakable pact forged after the blood years, when stars had wept and planets burned, and at its heart stood humanity. But they broke it. The Jatil Confederacy, draped in their silk of diplomacy and masked behind a 1,000-syllable language, launched a surgical strike on Vega Colony. Not a full assault, just enough to cripple, to remind Earth of its place. They expected hesitation, discussion, a return to negotiation tables. What they got was silence. And then the sky turned to fire. From the orbital ring of Aranthus Prime, Ambassador Revek watched the Terran fleet emerge, not through slipspace, but around it. They had bent the folds of reality with a technique the Accord had forbidden. A breach in the law, a rejection of the pact. But Earth had stopped caring about rules the moment the Jatil chose to rewrite them. "Are they hailing us?" Revek asked, panic coiling in his second throat. The comms officer, young, barely feathered, shook their head. "Nothing. Not even a targeting lock." "Then why aren't they firing?" The fleet hung there like silent judgment. 10 vessels, sleek, jet black. Their hulls shimmered with a heat that didn't exist yet, symbols etched into their prows. Not flags, but warnings. Not of who they served, but of what they would become. On Earth, in the command core buried under Antarctica's ice, General Kara Elson stood before the activation table. "Confirm full ignition of protocol reprisal," she ordered. "Confirmed," replied the AI. Behind her, diplomats cried. Advisors pleaded. Old allies begged for delay. But Kara had buried her husband on Vega Colony, and the soil still burned. "Begin." A single pulse launched from Earth, a signal encoded not in frequency, but in intention. It didn't ask for surrender. It didn't declare war. It simply informed the galaxy. Humanity has no more illusions about peace. 3 days later, Revek's station recorded its final log. Not a distress call, not a battle cry. Just a whispered observation. They didn't need to invade. The sky just opened. And across the stars, species remembered what it meant when Earth stopped speaking. Because forgiveness had been an offer. And now it was gone. By the time Jatil High Command deciphered Earth's signal, it was too late. Protocol reprisal wasn't a weapon. It was a sequence, an awakening. Across sectors, dormant satellites blinked alive. Old Terran outposts, abandoned and overgrown, revealed cores pulsing with ancient heat. Ships thought to be decommissioned, powered on with AI too advanced to speak. Humanity had not waited for betrayal. They had planned for it. On the ash-covered remains of Vega Colony, a single module cracked open. Inside, a Terran warframe, centuries old and entombed in silence, took its first breath in 100 years. Its directive was simple. They chose fire. Burn back. The Jatil capital of Threxus Prime lit up in alarms. Holograms of Earth's fleet flickered across every screen. No trajectory, no entry vector. 1 second, the sky was empty. The next, it wasn't. The human ships didn't speak, they remembered. When the first strike landed, it wasn't a bombardment. It was a revelation. Every defense system folded inward, every shield deactivated. Not because they failed. Because they were disconnected. Humanity hadn't built a new weapon. They'd rewritten the language of war. In a desperate move, Jatil leaders launched a counterwave, a swarm of subspace mirage fleets designed to fracture enemy targeting. But the Terran ships didn't fire on decoys. They moved through them, not avoiding, passing, as if they weren't worth noticing. The message was clear. You're not being fought, you're being ended. Back on Earth, General Elson stood in silence before the tactical holomap. "Jatil fleet status?" she asked. The AI, cold and exact, replied, "Irrelevant. Resistance degraded by 97.2%. Strategic collapse projected in 3.4 hours. And civilian centers? Unharmed, as per intent." Kara nodded. No more innocence, just fire for fire. The room fell silent, not out of fear, but recognition. The galaxy had taught humanity how to survive. But Earth had taught itself how to end wars before they began. On Threxus Prime, as the last military node blinked out, the sky glowed orange. Not from explosions, but from the Terran symbol cast across the clouds. A spiral of flame, their final answer to betrayal. Threxus Prime fell in hours. But fire never cleans completely. It burns. It ends. It leaves room for questions to rise from the ashes. In the underground chambers of the Jatil archives, Minister Halsa moved through corridors thick with smoke and silence. The servers were dead, but one terminal blinked, a Terran interface. He approached cautiously, expecting a virus, a trap. Instead, he saw a single file name, Mercy.001. He opened it. The screen filled with images of Vega Colony. Families, children, engineers building outposts under starlight, people laughing. Then the last image, the crater, burned, still glowing. Text scrolled beneath. We remember who we were. Do you remember what you did? No threats, no rhetoric, just a reckoning. On Earth, the fires of war did not reach the cities. General Elson walked through New Berlin's skylit gardens. News feeds flickered with terms like unprovoked, aggressive, total annihilation. She ignored them all. In a quiet square, a child played with a drone toy, a Terran model shaped like the old orbital defenders. The war wasn't for this child. It was because of them, so that this child would never grow up fearing the stars. Elson whispered, "Never again means never forgotten." The Terran fleet didn't linger. After Threxus Prime, they vanished. No demands, no governments overthrown. Just the message left behind. Earth remembers, Earth ends, Earth protects. Back in the remains of Jatil Command, Ambassador Revek recorded one last transmission. It wasn't revenge, it was consequence. His voice trembled. They were quiet for so long, we thought they'd forgotten. We didn't realize. He looked out at the sky, where the Terran ships had vanished. They were just waiting to be reminded why they should never speak again. The galaxy didn't speak of Threxus Prime. It whispered. In the outer colonies, ships changed course without orders. Treaties were re-examined. Armadas silently stood down. The name of Earth was no longer listed among the Council's diplomatic rosters. It had become a blank space, a pause in conversation, a quiet warning. On Ralvex 7, a communications technician intercepted a ghost transmission. Terran code laced with emotional imprint signatures. No message, just the feeling of being watched. A planetary withdrawal followed within an hour. The Accord tried to reassert order, but order did not answer. Only silence did. In the heart of the Terran command citadel, General Elson stood before the wall of names, an ever-growing display of those lost on Vega. Her hand hovered near her husband's inscription, etched into light. Behind her, AI Centra whispered, 14 sectors have ceased offensive operations. Jatil survivors request non-interference zones. Elson responded without turning. Tell them the fire has passed. Let them rebuild in the shadow they cast. She paused. And if they ask about peace? Centra's voice softened. They already know the answer. Peace was never denied. It was simply buried beneath their arrogance. Elsewhere, Ambassador Revek wandered the outer fringe of his people's refugee fleet. No guards, no attendants. Just him, the stars, and guilt heavy as gravity. Children stared at him with unfamiliar eyes. Not with hate, with confusion. They had no frame of reference for what had been done, or what had been unleashed in return. He muttered to himself, "We taught them silence. We shouldn't be surprised it learned how to roar." The comms blinked. A new message, coordinates. Earth had opened a corridor. Not for dialogue, for observation. They weren't hiding. They were letting the galaxy see what survived. And across every system that once whispered Earth's name in mockery, only one sound remained. A pause, and in it, the weight of consequence. Shadows do not speak, but they carry weight. The echoes of actions no one dares recount. In the dim vaults of the Korathi Sanctum, archivist Telenoripuric unlocked a restricted data prism. It was ancient, predating the Accord. He'd bribed, begged, and threatened for access. But what he found wasn't tactical data or old treaties. It was a record of Earth, before the silence, before the forgiveness, images of burning skies, of Terran soldiers holding a line not for conquest, but because they refused to move. A note followed. This is not rage. This is memory with a target. Tellan stared at the last entry, a timestamp that ended just days before the Accord was signed. The implications struck him harder than any strike fleet. Earth had never stopped preparing. Across the galaxy, minor powers began sharing records once hidden. Rumors of Terran visits, quiet interventions, fleets that arrived only when blood was about to spill and vanished without credit. Humanity had moved like a myth, not as overlords, but as ghosts ensuring peace held. And now that myth had returned, not to rule, but to remind. General Elson stood before the Galactic Assembly's ghost chair, Earth's seat, left perpetually empty. The delegates stared as she placed a single item there, a Vega colony soil sample, crystallized by heat. She said only one sentence: "Peace is what we offer, but justice is what you earned." She turned and left. No one spoke, no one moved. Because when Earth gives a warning, it never speaks twice. In the silence that followed, species once arrogant began rewriting their histories. They did not erase their shame. They documented it. Because they understood what the shadows of fire had remembered. Earth didn't destroy to dominate. It destroyed to be left alone. Peace had returned, but not as song. It came like the air after lightning, charged, brittle, and filled with the scent of something broken. On the surface of Vega Colony, the heat had finally faded. Terraforming crews arrived to assess, to rebuild. Yet the land resisted. Crops refused to root. Machinery malfunctioned. It was as if the planet itself remembered the betrayal. And the price of stillness was unease. In orbit, a Terran observational satellite blinked to life. Not for war, for monitoring. The feed went live across Earth's command centers. Thousands of eyes watching the soil, not for invasion, but for regrowth. Kara Elson sat quietly in her office, watching in silence. Centra, the AI, broke it. "They will write new treaties." "Yes," she said. "They will pretend this was an exception." "Yes." "And they will wait for silence to return." Kara stood and faced the window. "Then let the silence echo with fire. Let it remind them. Every still sky they look upon now belongs to us. Not because we claimed it, but because we chose not to burn it again." On a fringe world, a Jatil scholar named Viraz recorded his first cultural thesis post-collapse. His central argument? Humanity does not need monuments. Their silence is their legacy. Their absence becomes doctrine. When they leave, the vacuum they create becomes a law unto itself. Earth made no further moves. No more fleets, no more warnings. Just one Terran signal looping across all channels. Peace is not granted, it is defended. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the stars listened. At the edge of Terran space, beyond the furthest colony, light dimmed, not from absence, but design. There, a single platform rotated in shadow, orbiting nothing. No planet, no sun, just coordinates once scrubbed from galactic charts. The station bore no insignia, but its systems pulsed in Terran code. Inside, a lone sentinel sat in silence. Human, elderly, decorated in nothing but time. His name was Dalen Reeve, a veteran of the first expansion, and now, Watcher of the Dark. A soft tone chimed. The silence had shifted. He leaned forward. Finally. The stars outside shimmered, not with ships, but with presence. Entities. Spectral, non-corporeal. Things Earth had known about but never acknowledged. The true reason they built silence is defense. They weren't just warning the Council, they were warning them. General Elson received a ping, classified Omega Black. Eyes only. She read the update and nodded slowly. Centra asked, "Do we respond?" "No," she said. "We remember. That's enough." "Will they understand?" "They already do. That's why they're watching." The broadcast continued across the void. Earth remembers. Earth burns. Earth listens. The message wasn't sent to the galaxy anymore. It was sent beyond it, to the ancient things, the quiet gods, the forgotten architects. Earth had survived them once. And in the stillness, Earth reminded them, "We can survive you again." It began, not with weapons, but with acknowledgement. From the darkness beyond the stars, the old entities, ancient observers, dormant architects, hovered at the edge of perception. Earth had called them not with a challenge, but with truth. A history. A pattern. A decision to stand. And the entities paused. In their long span of witnessing, species had either bowed or burned, but Earth had done neither. Earth had warned, waited, and survived. They watched Earth not because it threatened, but because it had evolved. Kara Elson stood again in silence, facing a window that wasn't a window, a dimensional gate locked shut since before humans had language. The old gods hovered beyond it. She whispered to Centra, "Are they moving?" "No, they are remembering." "Then let them." The war didn't happen, not because Earth stopped it, not because the galaxy begged for calm, but because the very forces that once forged destruction blinked. And in that blink, Earth remained. A survivor, a reminder, a testament. Not the strongest, not the oldest, but the one who stared into extinction and said, "We remember what came before, and we will not repeat it, but we will be ready." In the galactic records, the event was logged simply. No conflict, full standoff, universal recalibration. Earth never spoke of it again. But every ship that passed through those coordinates dimmed their lights, and every voice that spoke Earth's name did so with reverence. Because the war that wasn't fought said more than any battle ever could. Legacies are not built from words. They are carved into silence, shaped by what was endured, not declared. In the wake of Earth's unspoken ultimatum, civilizations reeled, not in chaos but in redefinition. New diplomatic doctrines emerged. Fleets were retasked from conquest to preservation, and young leaders studied Earth's silence not as an absence of policy, but as a doctrine itself. Across 1,000 worlds, a singular question surfaced in hushed circles. What did Earth become to make even the void pause? On the rebuilt Vega colony, Kara Elson walked alone through restored gardens. Flora, genetically reseeded from archives, now thrived in alien soil. Beneath the ground lay scars older than treaties, silent, invisible, but never forgotten. Children played in open sunlight. No more drills, no more shelters. A peace not earned by submission, but by clarity. Nearby, a monument stood. It bore no flag, no weapon, only a single sentence etched into stone. "We are still here." Elsewhere among the stars, whispers rose of a new human outpost forming, not in defiance, not hidden. Open, bright, unarmed, as if daring the universe to forget again. But no one would, not after the skies had burned without sound, not after the flame had spoken without words. Because Earth's legacy wasn't victory, it was the lesson left behind. Fire can teach without consuming. Silence can warn without ending. And when Earth watches, it remembers. So others will too. The galaxy spun on, not with celebration, not with banners or declarations, but with caution, with reverence. Because there were many civilizations now, thriving in peace unchallenged by war. And they all knew why. On the edge of Terran space, where the last Terran signal once warned the stars, a new station stood, not a fortress, but a lighthouse. Its beacon pulsed not in red, but soft blue, a universal language meaning safe passage, observed, known. Aboard the station, children of multiple species studied side by side, Human, Jatil, Korathi, and more. They learned history, not the sanitized kind, but the real one. They read about the silence. They read about the flame. And most of all, they read about the choice Earth made when pushed past forgiveness. A teacher, herself once a refugee of the old wars, recited the Terran mantra, "Speak clearly, act wisely, remember deeply, because Earth does." In the central archive of Earth, Kara Elson's name now shimmered beside only one phrase, Guardian of the Silence. No statue was erected, no holidays proclaimed. Because those who remember do not need reminders. And those who watched Earth burn the sky knew they were still here, not because they won, but because they chose restraint when others demanded fury. The galaxy thrives now because of the world Earth let live. And